The Valiant drifted quietly in deep space, its Earth-based crew navigating the vast emptiness of the cosmos. Captain Elias Carter, a seasoned space explorer, stood at the helm. His dark eyes scanned the console, waiting for the routine scan results. He had expected just another day in the silent void, but today was different. "Sir," Lieutenant Harper's voice cracked through the quiet hum of the ship, "I'm picking up an anomaly. A fleet of unidentified ships. They're not moving." Carter's brow furrowed. "Unidentified ships. Can you get a visual?" The screen flickered to life, showing a group of massive vessels, their metallic hulls scared and damaged, drifting aimlessly. They looked alien, with unfamiliar symbols etched into the sides and strange glowing lights that flickered weakly. "Are they hostile?" Carter asked, his hand instinctively hovering over the ship's defense systems. "Not sure, sir," Harper replied, her fingers flying over the console. "But their power levels are dangerously low. It's like they're stranded." Captain Carter hesitated. The galaxy was vast and unforgiving, and helping an alien fleet could be a dangerous gamble. But his instincts told him there was more to this situation. "Open a channel," Carter ordered, his voice steady. "Let's see if we can make contact." A few moments later, a crackling transmission came through. A face appeared on the screen, an alien, tall and slender with blue skin and elongated features, looking weary and defeated. "This is Commander Zyra of the Troyan fleet," the alien said in a voice that resonated with desperation. "We require assistance. Our ships have been disabled after an unexpected attack. We cannot repair them ourselves. Please help us." The bridge crew exchanged uncertain glances. Helping a stranded alien fleet wasn't exactly protocol, but leaving them to die felt wrong. "We'll assist you," Carter finally said, his voice firm. "Prepare for docking." The Valiant approached the lead Troyan ship, its crew ready to offer help. As the docking process began, Carter felt a tension rising in his chest. He had dealt with first contact situations before, but this felt different. The aliens seemed desperate. When the airlocks opened, Carter and his team stepped aboard the Troyan vessel. The interior was dimly lit, with sparks flying from damaged consoles. Commander Zyra and a few other Troyan officers greeted them. Despite their regal bearing, they looked exhausted. "Thank you for coming," Zyra said, her voice softer now. "We've been stranded for days. Our systems are failing, and we have no way to communicate with our homeworld." Carter nodded. "We'll do what we can. My engineers will start working on your ship's power core. It might take some time." As his crew began their repairs, Carter couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The damage to the Troyan ships didn't look like the result of an accident. It looked like they had been in battle. "What happened to your fleet?" Carter asked. Zyra hesitated, glancing at her officers. "We were attacked by the Draphax, a ruthless species that preys on those they deem weaker. We barely escaped, but our systems were crippled in the process." "The Draphax?" Harper echoed, standing beside Carter. "We've heard rumors about them. Aggressive expansionists." Zyra's expression darkened. "They are far worse than you can imagine. If they find us again, they'll finish what they started." Carter exchanged a look with Harper. This was more than just a simple rescue mission. The Draphax were known for their brutality, and if they returned, the situation could escalate quickly. "We'll help you get back on your feet," Carter said, his tone serious. "But if the Draphax come, we'll need to be ready." As the hours passed, the Valiant's crew worked tirelessly to repair the Troyan ships. Meanwhile, Carter and Zyra stood on the command deck, watching over the repairs. "Captain Carter," Zyra said after a long silence, "there's something I haven't told you." Carter raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" "The Draphax. They aren't just hunting us. They're planning an invasion of Earth. Our fleet was the first to encounter them, but we've intercepted communications. Earth is their next target." Carter felt a chill run down his spine. The Draphax were powerful, and if they intended to attack Earth, humanity would be in grave danger. "Why Earth?" Harper asked, overhearing the conversation. "They see it as a strategic point," Zyra explained. "And they know humans are resourceful. a potential threat to their dominance. Carter clenched his fists. We can't let that happen. But just as Carter was about to respond, alarms blared through the Tryan ship. Drafax ships incoming, Harper shouted from her console. They found us. The Valiant and the Tryan fleet scrambled as Drafax warships emerged from hyperspace. The sleek, black ships cut through the darkness, their weapons charging. Carter didn't hesitate. All hands to battle stations. Defend the Tryan fleet. The space around them lit up with explosions as both sides exchanged fire. The Valiant's shields held, but the Tryan ships, still under repair, struggled to fend off the attackers. "Captain, we need more time," one of Carter's engineers called over the comms. "The Tryan ships aren't fully operational yet." "We don't have more time," Carter muttered under his breath. "Harper, target the Drafax command ship. We take them down, the rest might fall back." The Valiant surged forward, weaving between enemy fire. Carter's heart pounded as he guided his ship toward the largest Drafax vessel, determined to protect the alien fleet and Earth. As the battle raged on, Carter knew they were running out of options. The Drafax were relentless, and the Tryan ships were barely holding together. "We need to hit them where it hurts," Carter said. "Focus everything on the command ship's weapons array." The Valiant unleashed a barrage of firepower, striking the command ship's weak points. The Drafax vessel shuddered under the assault, but it wasn't enough. "We're not going to make it," Harper said, her voice filled with tension. "There are too many of them." Just then, Zyra stepped forward. "Captain, we have one last option. A weapon aboard our ship, ancient Tryan technology. It's dangerous, but it might be our only chance." Zyra led Captain Carter deeper into the bowels of the Tryan flagship, down winding corridors dimly lit by flickering, ancient lights. The walls here felt different, carved with intricate patterns, glowing faintly as they neared their destination. It was clear this part of the ship was not designed by the current generation of Tryan engineers. It was older, much older. They reached a massive set of doors. As Zyra pressed her hand to the control panel, the doors slid open with a heavy, mechanical groan. Carter's breath caught in his throat as he stepped into the chamber beyond. The room was enormous, easily the size of a football field, with a high ceiling that seemed to disappear into the shadows above. At its center was a massive spherical device floating in the air. It was encased in a transparent, crystalline shell, glowing with a pulsating, otherworldly light. Strange runes circled the device, shifting and moving like they were alive, forming patterns Carter couldn't understand. "This is the core of Zalkath," Zyra said, her voice echoing slightly in the vast chamber. "It's a relic of our ancestors, built long before we even discovered space travel. They were masters of energy manipulation, far beyond what we know today." Carter approached cautiously, feeling the hum of power in the air, almost like a living presence. "What exactly does it do?" he asked. "It's a weapon, but unlike anything you've seen. It can generate a burst of electromagnetic energy so powerful that it can disrupt any ship's systems within a massive radius, shutting down entire fleets. But," Zyra trailed off, her gaze darkening, "it draws power from the ship's core itself. If it overloads, the feedback could destroy us all." Carter stared at the device, weighing his options. The Drafax were relentless, and their numbers were overwhelming. The Valiant and the Tryan fleet wouldn't last much longer. But activating this weapon came with immense risk. They could be trading one kind of destruction for another. "How sure are you that this will work?" Carter asked, his voice low. Zyra turned to him, her expression serious. "There are no guarantees, Captain. We've never used it before in combat. It's only been theorized, and our engineers haven't fully mastered its intricacies. But without it, we won't survive." Carter clenched his jaw, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He looked out the small viewport at the stars, where the Drafax ships continued their assault, laser fire lighting up the black void. Time was running out. "Do it," he said finally, his voice steady. "We don't have a choice." Zyra nodded gravely, and without another word, she approached the control panel at the base of the chamber. Her fingers danced across the alien console, inputting sequences Carter couldn't hope to decipher. The room began to hum louder, and the glowing runes on the device flared to life, pulsing faster and faster. The Valiant and Tryon ships outside continued their desperate defense, their shields flickering under the unrelenting barrage from the Drathax. On the bridge, Lieutenant Harper watched in mounting horror as more enemy ships poured into the system, their numbers seemingly endless. "Shields are at 30%, Captain." Harper's voice crackled through Carter's comms. "We can't take much more of this." "Hold them off for just a little longer," Carter replied, his eyes locked on the ancient weapon as it began to spin faster, the energy within growing more volatile. The chamber trembled as the power surged. Zyra's hands shook slightly as she worked the controls, sweat beading on her forehead. "We're almost there," she muttered under her breath. Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered and alarms blared throughout the vessel. The entire Tryon ship began to shake violently, and Carter grabbed onto the nearest support beam to steady himself. "Zyra, what's happening?" Carter shouted over the rising noise. "The core is drawing too much power." Zyra yelled back, her eyes wide with fear. The energy buildup is destabilizing the ship's systems. Carter's heart pounded. "Can you control it?" "I'm trying." Zyra's fingers flew across the console, but the trembling only intensified. The runes on the device glowed brighter, now burning a deep red. "We're reaching critical levels." Outside, the Drathax ships continued to close in, their weapons ready to deliver the final blow. The Valiant was barely holding on, its shields flickering, hull breached in multiple places. If the core didn't activate soon, there wouldn't be anything left to save. Zyra let out a frustrated cry as the controls sparked, but then, with a final push, the chamber went silent. The trembling stopped, the alarms ceased, and for a brief, terrifying moment, everything was still. Then, without warning, a blinding pulse of light erupted from the core. It shot out from the ship, expanding outward at incredible speed, washing over the battlefield like a tidal wave of pure energy. The Drathax ships, caught in the blast, faltered. One by one, their lights flickered and died as their systems shut down, leaving them drifting helplessly in space. On board the Valiant, Harper's jaw dropped as the enemy fleet simply stopped. "Captain, their ships are offline. We did it." But inside the Tryon vessel, things were far from calm. The energy from the core was still surging, its glow now blindingly bright. Zyra's hands flew over the console again, desperately trying to stabilize the device. "It's not stopping," she screamed. "The feedback loop is building. We're going to overload." Carter rushed to her side, gripping her shoulder. "Shut it down." "I can't." Zyra shouted, panic in her voice. "The power is too great. If we don't release it, the entire ship will explode." Carter's mind raced. The core had done its job, but now it threatened to destroy them all. He had to think fast. "Is there any way to vent the excess energy into space?" he asked, scanning the alien control panels. Zyra hesitated, then nodded. "There's an emergency protocol, but we'd have to manually activate it from outside the ship." Carter didn't hesitate. "I'll do it." Before Zyra could protest, Carter was already moving. He grabbed a suit from the emergency locker and began suiting up. "Harper," he called over the comm, "I need you to prepare the shuttle. I'm going outside." "Sir?" Harper's voice was filled with confusion. "What's going on?" "No time to explain. Just be ready." Minutes later, Carter was in the airlock, staring out at the vast expanse of space. The Tryon ship loomed above him, its hull still trembling from the immense power coursing through it. Beyond, the Drathax fleet hung motionless, their ships dead in the water. Carter launched himself toward the exterior of the Tryon ship, the shuttle propelling him through the void. As he reached the energy vent on the ship's hull, his hands worked quickly, pulling the manual release lever. There was a loud hiss, and suddenly, a torrent of energy blasted out into space, dissipating harmlessly into the void. The shaking subsided. The glow of the core dimmed, returning to its original state. Inside, Zyra slumped against the control panel, her body trembling with relief. "It's over," she whispered. "Carter, floating outside in the silence of space, watched as the battlefield calmed. The Drefx ships were powerless, and the Trian fleet, though damaged, had survived. The gamble had paid off. With a deep breath, Carter signaled to his crew. "The weapon is deactivated. We're safe for now." As the smoke cleared and the last embers of the battlefield faded into the cold silence of space, the Trian and human crews gathered on the deck of the valiant, battered but triumphant. The once vast and fearsome Drefx fleet now drifted in the void, dark and powerless. Their ships, which had seemed so invincible only hours before, were now nothing more than lifeless wreckage, caught in the wake of the Trian's ancient weapon. Carter, bruised and weary, stood at the helm, his gaze fixed on the view outside. The stars twinkled in the distance, serene and indifferent to the chaos that had just unfolded. His thoughts were far away, already racing ahead to what came next. Zyra approached him quietly, her once composed demeanor now softened by exhaustion and relief. Her usually fierce amber eyes were softer now, filled with gratitude. "We owe you everything," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. "Without your intervention, the Drefx would have wiped us out. Your courage saved us all." Carter gave a slight nod, his jaw clenched in thought. "We did what we had to do, but this isn't over, not by a long shot." Zyra's expression darkened, understanding the gravity of his words. "You're right. The Drefx underestimated us this time, but they will learn. The next time they come, they'll be prepared for what we've unleashed here today." "Their entire empire probably knows by now," Carter said, his voice low but steady. "And when they come back, they'll be stronger, more determined. They won't make the same mistake twice." The room was heavy with the weight of his words. The victory they had earned felt fleeting, like a temporary reprieve from an inevitable storm. Carter could feel it in his bones. This was only the beginning. The Drefx wouldn't stop until they had crushed every last bit of resistance, and Earth was squarely in their crosshairs. "We won't stand a chance on our own," Carter admitted, more to himself than anyone else. "Not without help." Zyra straightened, her resolve hardening. "Then you won't be alone. Our people will stand with you, Captain. Today, we fought together, and we won. We'll do it again." Her hand touched Carter's arm gently. "The Trian Empire owes Earth more than just an alliance. We owe you our survival, and we will fight by your side until the end." Carter looked at her, appreciating the sincerity of her words, but he also knew that alliances were fragile things, easily broken under the weight of fear and desperation. It would take more than promises to survive what was coming. It would take true unity, something rare in the galaxy. "Thank you," Carter said quietly, his voice steady but filled with the weight of responsibility. "We'll need every bit of help we can get. The Drefx won't rest until Earth is a smoldering ruin, and neither will I until they're stopped." Zyra nodded solemnly. "Then together we'll prepare. The Drefx may be powerful, but they've never faced anything like what we can become when we unite." As the crews began to regroup, a quiet moment of camaraderie settled over the scene. Human and Trian soldiers stood side by side, sharing glances of mutual respect. They were tired, bruised, and many had lost friends today, but they had survived, and for now, that was enough. Lieutenant Harper approached Carter, saluting smartly despite the obvious fatigue etched on her face. "Captain, the crews secured the battlefield, and we've confirmed all Drefx ships are disabled. Engineering is running checks, but the Valiant is holding together." "Good work, Lieutenant," Carter said, though the fatigue was creeping into his own voice now. "Make sure the crew gets some rest. We've earned it." Harper nodded and turned back toward her post, leaving Carter and Zyra to the silent hum of the ship. As the Trian delegation began to return to their ship, Zyra lingered a moment longer. "This alliance between our people, it's more than just a military necessity," she said, her voice soft but full of conviction. "We've seen the strength of humanity today. You fight not just with weapons, but with heart. It's rare, and that's what will win this war, not just technology or strategy, but the unbreakable spirit that you and your crew have shown." Carter smiled faintly at that, though his eyes remained distant. "Let's hope you're right, because the Drefx, They're not just coming for our worlds. They want to break us, and we can't let them." Zyra clasped his forearm in a triune gesture of solidarity. "They won't. Not if we fight together." With that, she departed, and Carter was left alone on the bridge. He turned his eyes once more to the stars, feeling the vastness of the galaxy stretching out before him. It was beautiful, but it was also dangerous. For every alliance formed, there were enemies lurking in the shadows, waiting for the moment to strike. He knew that Earth's survival wasn't just about battles in space. It was about uniting disparate species, overcoming centuries of mistrust and division. The Drathax would return, but they wouldn't just be facing humanity next time. They'd be facing something far more formidable, an alliance forged in fire, bound by the shared will to survive. The galaxy had seen the first glimpse of what humans and their allies could achieve together, but the true test was still to come. As the crew of the Valiant settled in for the long journey back to Earth, Carter allowed himself a moment to rest. He knew the coming days would be filled with preparations, new strategies, and difficult decisions. The Drathax were not defeated. They were merely delayed, and when they came back, it would take everything humanity had, and more, to push them back for good. But for now, they had a fighting chance, and in the cold, indifferent darkness of space, that was more than Carter had hoped for. As the stars glittered in the distance, Captain Carter whispered under his breath, "We'll be ready." Months had passed since the battle between the Trian and Drathax fleets, but the echoes of that conflict still reverberated across the galaxy. Word of the humans' resilience and the mysterious power they had unleashed spread like wildfire. Entire civilizations whispered of Earth's unexpected strength, and alliances began to shift in the shadows. Back on Earth, preparations for the inevitable war had intensified. The once quiet military installations buzzed with activity, and hidden defense projects, long dormant, were revived. Factories worked around the clock, building ships, weapons, and technology that would give humanity a fighting chance against the looming Drathax threat. In the heart of these efforts stood Captain Carter. He had been promoted after the battle, recognized as a hero both on Earth and among the Trian. Yet the weight of responsibility hung heavily on his shoulders. Every decision, every plan for the future, had to be perfect, because there wouldn't be a second chance if they failed. Carter stood in the war room, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy projected before him. Dots of light represented known Drathax strongholds and patrol routes, while lines traced the new alliances forming between humanity and the Trian Empire. It was a fragile hope, but it was hope nonetheless. Behind him, the door slid open, and a familiar presence entered. Zyra had stayed on Earth as the official ambassador of the Trian Empire. She had worked tirelessly with human leaders, sharing technology, intelligence, and strategy. But more than that, she had grown to admire humans in a way she hadn't expected. Still thinking about the next move, Zyra asked as she approached. Carter didn't take his eyes off the map. "Always. The Drathax won't give us much time. We've bought ourselves a few months, maybe a year at best, but they're out there, preparing." Zyra stood beside him, her expression thoughtful. "Then we'll be ready, just as you said." Carter finally turned to face her, the tired lines on his face more prominent than they had been months ago. "We have to be. They'll throw everything at us next time." Zyra's eyes softened. "You carry the weight of the galaxy on your shoulders, Captain, but you're not alone in this fight. The Trians stand with you, and there are others, more than you think, who are watching, waiting for the right time to join our cause." Carter nodded. "I know, but it's not just about surviving the Drathax. It's about what comes after. If we win this war, the galaxy will change forever. We have to be ready for that too." Zyra smiled faintly, her alien features softened by the gesture. "You humans never stop thinking ahead, always planning for the next challenge, always looking for a way to improve." "That's how we survive," Carter said, his voice low but resolute. "It's how we've always survived." As they stood there, side by side, the holographic map shifted, revealing a new set of data. A transmission from the Outer Rim, a distant colony world under attack. The Drathax had begun their next phase. Carter's jaw tightened. It's starting. Zyra's gaze hardened, but there was no fear in her voice, only determination. Then go be ready. Carter took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the future pressing down on him. But this time he wasn't standing alone. With the Trian at their side and new alliances forming across the galaxy, humanity was no longer the isolated species it once had been. Together, they would face whatever came next. As the stars continued to shine in the vastness of space, Captain Carter knew one thing for certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. But no matter what happened, no matter how dark the future seemed, humanity would endure. They always had, and they always would.